Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about Austin FC in the season preview, and there's no doubt that Austin has been very busy when it comes to some of these transfer rumors and signing this offseason. And this is not a big surprise because there's no doubt that this team is looking to get themselves back to a playoff contender. Though, this is going to be the first season where they're going to be under a new head coach. This is pretty much the Nico Estevez era now for Austin FC, and there are definitely some Austin fans are a little bit skeptical of how this is going to go, especially there's definitely some mixed opinion when it comes to Nico Estevez being the head coach of this team. There's a lot of Austin fans feel like it's a very underwhelming hiring and a hiring that doesn't seem like it moves a lot of needle of them getting themselves back to a playoff contender. With that being said, last season, man, what an up and down season Austin had last season. I already mentioned when the Moving Forward series episode about Austin of how it was a season last year that pretty much almost combined with what was the narrative of this Los Angeles team in their first free season in the league. A team that at times were literally the worst team in the league, looked like a wooden spoon kind of team. And then there's some times where they pull off wins that they have no rights in terms of winning. And then there are also some miracle comeback that they had during last season as well, kind of reminiscent to what we saw in that incredible second season when they finished second and made it all the way to the Western Conference Final. But alas, they did finish with 42 points and finished 10th in the West, and obviously did not make it to the playoffs. Head coach, of course, Nico Estevez is taking charge of another Texas team. He kind of make the drive down south now, taking charge of this Austin team after he was fired from FC Dallas just last season. The sporting director, of course, is Rodolfo Burrow. He's been there since 2023. He took over this team when Claudio Reyna had to kind of step down in disgrace after the whole Reyna and Berhalter kind of fiasco that happened a couple of years ago after the U.S. was eliminated in the group stage of the World Cup and also after the World Cup, that is. Now, when it comes to player transfers, again, they've been very busy in terms of the transfer window. Don't let the amount of ins, which there's only 3 players right now, but there's definitely the a chance that there could be more players that is bringing in to this team, and they're big names too. They brought in a very experienced player in Ilya Sanchez as a free agency, or as a free agent after LAFC decide not to renew his contract. Austin just said, "Yep, thank you very much. We're going to take the experience of Ilya, and he's most likely going to be similar to what Alex Ray means to this team when it comes to just bring the experience and bring the leader to this team that this team desperately need heading into this season." And then they, of course, made a really big signing recently by bringing Brandon Vasquez from Rayados, and we know the caliber that Brandon Vasquez is. He is a guy that if you give him service and if he looked like something similar to a player that he was doing his time with FC Cincinnati, Austin have definitely got a legit number nine on their team and actually a very underrated attack if things can get going. And then they also have Nicholas Dobrzeski, a guy that it's going to be interesting to see how the defensive midfielder situation is going to be for this Austin team because they've signed a lot of defensive midfield this off season, and you can only put one player there unless you decide to play a double pivot and maybe play another midfielder out there. But there's no doubt they have endless depth in terms of that position, and it'll be interesting to see whether Nico Estevez will go for him as the regular starter. He is a U22 initiative kind of signing as well. And let's not forget that there's also been some more rumors in terms of some of the signings that they could make in the future. They're looking to bring in another number 6 and also potentially a number 10 as well to replace Sebastian Driussi, which speaking of which, I'm going to actually move to the last player on the out list. As we know, Sebastian Driussi is no longer with this team, and this is not a big surprise considering that it was pretty clear that he was very unhappy with this team near the end of the season, and you can even saw it with the effort that he put in. He clearly didn't want to be there. It was pretty clear they had to move on from him, whether if it's a contract buyout or they decide to sell him to another team. Now the good news is they were able to sell him to another team. In fact, they got a huge amount of money for this $10 million for Sebastian Driussi to River Plate, and they also got a 4% of sell-on fee. That is a great business for this Austin team and for a guy that again doesn't seem like he wants to be there. Sometimes when you decide to move on players that doesn't want to be there, and even if it's your star player, it's not easy to try to salvage some amount of money. And I think that's what FC Cincinnati is trying to figure out. They're trying to either bring back Lucho Acosta or maybe even do the unthinkable and decide to sell him to another team for almost a similar or margin as what Sebastian Driussi transfer was to River Plate. But besides that, they also let go of Matt Brizano as his option was declined. The same goes for Ethan Finley, Matt Hedges, Hector Jimenez, Alex Rain, of course, a player that's been with this team since day one, and he's definitely a leader of this team. But we saw this upcoming season, you can clearly see he kind of fell off a cliff to a point where it just feels like they weren't going to bring him back unless if they decide to still talk to him and maybe renew his contract. I don't think it's going to happen. Consider after they got Ilie, there's really no point of them bringing back if those two players are going to be very similar quality and also have that similar trait of being a good leader of this team. Now you also got Johan Valencia. His option was declined, and then they also exercised a contract buyout of Jarzi Zardes. That was definitely big as well because Zardes does holds a lot of the cap space that this Austin team has had, and knowing that Zardes is a definition of a guy that clearly has hit it the wrong side of 30, and a guy that it's not surprised that there's not a lot of team that is looking to offer him, considering he seems like he has completely washed up in these last couple of years. Yeah, there was no doubt that Austin had to do something, and again with the amount that they owe in the contract and the cap hit that it takes, they had no choice to decide to exercise the buyout and at least free up a lot of the cap space that Jarzi Zardes once occupied of this team. Now, looking at the first 5 games of the season, so they start their first ever game at home under Nico Estevez against Sporting KC. Then they go on the road to play against the Portland Timbers before returning home to play against Colorado. Then they go on the road to play against LAFC, and then they play the new boys, San Diego FC, at home on the 23rd. So that's not a bad schedule to start the season. There are definitely some tough games out there as well. I mean, the LAFC one, and that is probably the toughest one out of the 5 that they have. Now, looking at the last 5 games of the season, they play in the final Copa Tejas match against FC Dallas on the road on September 13th. Then they play against Seattle at home before going on the road to play against RSL, then playing at home against St. Louis, and then go on the road to finish off the final game this season on decision day against the San Jose Earthquakes. And that's definitely a little bit tougher when it comes to the last 5 games. There are definitely some tough teams that they might be facing, and teams that this team is going to be a playoff contender and maybe get themselves back into to being in the fringes of making the playoffs. It's always interesting to see how their last 5 games is, and it's not easy, but it's doable for them if they are going to be in the playoff race by then. Now, looking at the strength of this team, it's got to be the midfield and also the goalkeeping as well. Might even dare to say, their attack is also kind of a strength as well. For simply adding Brandon Vasquez, that's a huge upgrade for him. Though again, there is that question when it comes to the number 10. Now, for what I heard from Austin fans, some Austin fans has kind of said that they don't really need a number 10 and don't really need to replace Driussi straight away. They could have also just used Danny Pereira as a hybrid 10, and Danny Pereira has done very well with Austin FC. He's one of the rare number 1 pick that actually worked out relatively well for this Austin FC team, and also stay with this team as well. So maybe they hope that this is going to be his breakout year and play into that role, and maybe create a partnership between him and Brandon Vasquez. And the same goes with their other big signing in Osami but Bakari, who last season it was a bit of a slow start for him. He didn't really score too much goals or create too much assists, but they're just really hoping that he's just kind of another player that just trying to just to a new league and eventually will find his footings. And then of course the goalkeeping spot. It's always been a strength for this team. Brad Stuver, one of the most underrated goalkeeper in this league, and at times last season he was really the reason why this team did not concede more than 50 plus goal. I mean the defense of this team at times last season was bad with all caps at times in games. I mean there were games where they were getting absolutely outshot by their opposition, but the only reason why they were still in it is because Brad Stuver just keep making save after save to keep them in the game and even steal some games at time. Now, talk about the back line. That is definitely going to be the weakness of this team. And I even put coaching with a question mark as well. But starting with the weakness with the back line, again, I know this offseason, this Austin team probably is not going to adjust address the back line. Consider the back line that they of course had some of the signings that they had in the defensive area. They made those move in the summer transfer window as well. They got that Dessler guy in the summer transfer window. There was another center back that they also got in the summer transfer window. Neither of them has looked really good, and this again is just a hope that maybe things will turn around for them. Maybe it's just a case that they're adjusting to a new league, and eventually things will pick up. Because if that's not going to be the case, oh boy, there's a lot of question mark when it comes to the defense. This defense doesn't seem like is a defense that unless if Brad Stuver once again is going to have another great season and maybe a goalkeeper of the year kind of type of season. I would not be surprised this defense might can see almost similar amount of goals that they did last season as well. And again, they really can't kind of can't address it. Consider they did that the last season, and it hasn't really quite worked out for them. I'm pretty sure they're praying, and certainly the same goes for the sporting director Rodolfo Burrow. He's really praying that things will work out for them. And speaking of Rodolfo Burrow, he was being very criticized when he didn't really make too much move in the beginning of last season, but that's mainly because he kind of just took over the role relatively quick. But yeah, so far most of the signing it hasn't really quite worked out whatsoever. And when you keep whiffing on signing, that's when I think Austin fans might even question in terms of their sporting director and whether or not if it's good enough to get this team back to being a contender in the playoffs. Then I wrote coaching with a question mark as well. Again, there's been a lot of doubts when it comes to this Austin FC fan base about Nico Estevez, and there's definitely concern. Consider again when he took over with FC Dallas, like I mentioned in my moving forward series about FC Dallas of how he was not a good coach when it comes to his tactics and played that kind of a bit of a negative brand kind of style of soccer, which I don't think Austin fans are going to be very happy about that scene after enduring with what Josh Wolf has had in his negative brand of tactics as well. But we could see a situation where this could be another Ben Olsen and Chris Armas situation, which in fact that kind of perfectly transitioned in terms of the free big question. And before we talk about the first big question, we're jumping in the second big question of can Nico Estevez do a Ben Olsen and Chris Armas and just kind of prove those doubters wrong. Again, I mentioned those two names because those are the two head coaches that when they were hired by a team, guys that in their previous job didn't really do very well with their team, and when they were hired, there was a lot of red flag that it was going to be the same old, but they really proved a lot of doubters wrong, and both of those teams had a respectable season. Now the question is, can Nico Estevez do that? Can he shake off his bad reputation that he has with Dallas and actually do well with this Austin team and guide this team back into the playoff position? Who and if they need to find a replacement for Dre UC. So I already mentioned this before. It'll be interesting to see whether or not if they are going to find a replacement. There are some rumors that they are looking to do so, especially with the amount that they got. They got some money to play in terms of trying to find a proper replacement. If not, most likely, I think it's probably going to be Danny Pereira that's going to be slotting into that spot as a hybrid 10 as well, which is not the worst idea. But ideally, I would say that if they really want to have a decent playmaker on this team, they definitely are looking to try to go out there to find that and especially found that Dre UC type of player that it's not going to be easy to replicate. Consider of the hole that Dre UC has left to this Austin team. And then, of course, the last thing is, again, they're not done when it comes to major signing. There's been a lot of rumors that there's a couple more signings that this Austin team can done. We'll see what has up their sleeve, and most importantly, will they make an impact? Again, this has been the problem for Austin, and been a problem for Rodolfo Burrow when it comes to his signings, where guys that he signed, it takes a while before they make an impact, and there's a question whether if that is going to be the case as well. And also, there's been a lot of a bad signing that is out there. So that is going to be something that they're going to have to address. But most likely, in terms of the expectation of this season, I think there's got to be more consistency. Again, I think Austin fans they were definitely pulling their hair out a lot last season in terms of seeing how inconsistent the team was, and again the team was just so up and down when it comes to their form. There's times where they were good, and then there's time where they just look like the worst team in the league, especially on the road. That is. and of course getting themselves back into the playoff contention as well. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the season preview of Austin FC. As always, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of this season preview? And if you're an Austin fan, what do you think is the strength, the weakness, and the three big question coming into this team and your expectation for this team heading into this upcoming season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.